I've been making rooms in Rec Room since 2019, so today I'm gonna walk you through all of the rooms I've made in the past 3 years. We're gonna see how I went from making rooms like this completely alone to how I made rooms like this with a whole group of people, so stick around. So first up here is JoustingPvP, and even though this is the first room I ever published, it's actually got quite a bit of story to it. So back in 2019, I saw that Rec Room was doing one of their build contests that they still do to this day, and this was the fantasy contest. It was like the 3rd or 4th contest they ever did. At this time, I was basically a nobody. I wasn't making Rec Room YouTube videos at all, and I wasn't involved in the building community at all. I was just playing Rec Room casually. But you know, I program stuff sometimes, and I'd messed with circuits in Rec Room, and I saw that Maker Pen skin, and I wanted it. So even though most contest teams are 6 people who work tirelessly the entire time period to finish a room, I decided to enter completely solo into the game category and just see how I could do. In this room, JoustingPvP is the result. The idea is that 2 people can enter the arena and then grab their swords, and it sort of jousts them at each other like 8 times, and you have an opportunity to hit the other player. Each time you hit the other player, you get a point, and by the end of the 8 rounds, whichever player has the most points wins. Obviously, the lobby and arena don't look great because I'm more of a circuits person than an art person, but I'd say for 2019, if you go back and look at some of the other entries, this building was at least passable for a game room. Hearing about the game and looking at these circuits, you're probably thinking it isn't anything too impressive, but let me take you back to the building tools we had in 2019. So first, this was before the game chip even existed, so I had to make my own game starting, ending, joining, and scoring systems with circuits. Also, yeah, this isn't a ton of circuits, but you have to remember this is Circuits V1, not Circuits V2. Looking back, I have no idea how to read this. There's literally so many wires going everywhere, and I don't know how I made it even. And just to put it into perspective even more, this is before we even had invisible collision, but I didn't want people to just be able to jump out of the jousting area, you know? So to make this invisible ceiling, I had to use the corner of the hitbox of a sphere that was stretched out so big it wasn't visible from the arena. That's the kind of stuff that I had to do to get this room working. So how did it perform in the contest? For those of you who don't know, the top 10 in contests is determined by engagement. So if you have a really good room in a contest, but it gets 0 visits, then it's not going to be in the top 10. For the fantasy contest, I really tried to hold events and get people in this room and playing it and stuff, but sadly, it did not get top 10, which means I did not qualify for a chance to get top 5 or top 3 or whatever. This might sound a bit egotistical, but I believe this room would have had a shot at top 5 or even top 3 if it got in top 10. This is one of the very few rooms from that time that I saw that had a custom game mode you could play with actually enforced rules and a game loop. So yeah, in retrospect, I'm pretty sad this didn't even get top 10 because I think it would have had a decent shot in the contest. So let's fast forward to late 2020, around the time that I made this YouTube channel when I made my next room. This is MysteryClimb, and it has a much shorter story than jousting, I swear. This is around the time I was getting back into making stuff in Rec Room, and I remembered back to jousting and how I was motivated to make that for a contest, so I thought if I participated in the mystery contest, I'd be motivated to make something. Except at that point, it'd been over a year, people had gotten better at building in Rec Room, and I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be able to place it all with a solo map. So I purposefully kept the scope of this room really small. I wasn't even trying to get top 10. I just made it for fun because I wanted to get another thing out there to get back into it. And I was really into climbing rooms at the time, so why not make it a climbing room? You start off in this little room where some dude's like, oh my gosh, someone at these apartments was murdered. You have to go find the evidence to figure out who it was. So then you go out of the window and you basically climb around this red and blue building trying to find these 3 evidence files. And then you gotta bring all 3 up to the top of the blue building, and then you have enough evidence to convict the murderer. And then it ends, and oh my gosh, the murderer was the Holotar guy from the first area. Who would have thought? I spent most of the time trying to design the climbing course layout to make it easy for new players to jump into, while also having paths that were faster for more experienced players. So as expected, this room didn't actually place in the contest at all, and I was fine with that. I just made it to, you know, get myself making things again and get another room out there. The next room I published was BuyTheCube, which doesn't really count, honestly. In February 2021, I told everyone to make this orange cube the most bought invention in Rec Room, and I made this room to promote it. No actual effort was put into this room, so I kinda just came in here to promote the orange cube. Buy it if you haven't already. Also, while you're here, you should subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Oh, also one more thing, use code BVRR in Rec Room just like this to support me in game because it helps me out a ton and it's free for you. Before we get into the next room, I think it's important to mention that between last room and the next room, I joined Ink Overflow. Ink Overflow is a build group in Rec Room. We've made rooms like Poppy Playtime, SwordSummit, RapRumble, Timber Hollow, and a whole bunch of other ones. I originally joined near the end of 2020 because they wanted someone to make YouTube videos for them, but since then I've also done circuits for a whole bunch of Ink Overflow overflow rooms, which we're about to see a bunch of. The first ink overflow room I worked on, and the next room I worked on in general, is RapRumble. The concept of this room is exactly as you'd expect. 2 players can go up on stage, have a rap battle with some music tracks that play in the background. Each player gets 2 rounds, and at the end, everyone in the room can vote for who they thought won. There's a bunch of extra costumes and consumables and stuff you can get to. I also actually only really initially did about half of the circuits for this room, but as time's gone on, we've updated it a whole bunch, and I've been the primary circuiteer for all those updates. This is also around the time when Circuits V2 came out, which I am much better at than Circuits V1. So from this point forward, the combination of me not needing to handle art because I'd actually have teams going forward and not be doing everything solo, and also being able to use Circuits V2, which I enjoyed significantly more than Circuits V1, you'll see that I started to work on a lot more rooms a lot quicker. This is the custom arena for the Rec Room Sword League, which I did all of the circuits for. Ink Overflow made SwordSummit, so the Sword League is kind of sponsored by Ink Overflow, I guess. It just allows for 3v3 sword matches with a whole anti-cheat system and some custom camera systems. So shout out to the Rec Room Sword League people. Most of you are pretty cool and funny. And Season 3 of the Sword League is actually just starting right about now, so check out the link in the description for that. This room is TripleThreat, and we released it in August 2021 for the Carnival contest. And guys, man, this one really hurts. I'll try and explain, but I don't know if you'll ever be able to fully understand the feeling that I'm having right now coming back into this room. For the Carnival contest, our team decided to do a quest, which in case you don't know, is a lot more work than a game. While a game usually only takes place in one subroom and you only really have one game loop and one room to worry about, quests take place across a lot of subrooms and have a ton of different mechanics in them. So you have to make new art and circuits for every single one of those subrooms. So what about this quest? What's it like? The idea is that you start out in this office and you work for some Men in Black style agency, and you get a call to go investigate some mysterious signals coming from this haunted carnival. And once you're here, you can actually pick the order that you decide to do the levels in. Each one of the 3 paths has a level you have to get through, and then a boss you fight, and then it takes you back here. And then for each boss you defeat, one of the locks on this main tent door comes off, and once you go through all 3 levels and bosses, you can go into this tent and face the final boss. So for total subrooms, we had the office subroom, the train ride subroom, this hub subroom. There's the 3 levels subrooms, the 3 bosses subrooms, a subroom leading up to the final boss and the actual final boss subroom, the credits subroom, and the main lobby subroom. So you can start to maybe see how this was a lot of work to get done in the 3 or 4 weeks we had before the contest ended. We were making pretty decent progress on finishing the room for the first half of the contest, but some of our team members weren't really showing up as much, which made it pretty hard. And then for the second half of the contest, one of our team members just completely vanished, along with a couple others not being able to be on as much. So for the last week or 2 of the contest, we were really crunching to get things done. Like, every single hour of my free time was spent in here working on circuits. Just to give you some perspective, for the last week of the contest, I had something that started every morning around 7 and went until noon. So I would get home from my thing around 12, and then I would literally spend the entire rest of the day until 3 or 4 a.m. working on this room. And then I'd go to bed, and I'd only get around 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I'd have to wake up at 7 and do my thing again, and then I'd get home, and the process would repeat. And as a result of the hard work of some of our team members, we ended up publishing on time, and I think this is a really sick quest. If you haven't played it yet, I would highly recommend you grab 2 friends and do so. There are unique mechanics in every single level, and then you use that mechanic to defeat the boss for that level, and then the mechanics all come together for the final boss, and then the final boss uses some absolutely insane inverse kinematic stuff. You have to see it for yourself. This is, I still think, the craziest thing in Rec Room. Shoutouts to Nameless for making this. There are a few design and gameplay problems. Trust me, I know about them, but as an overall package, I was really proud of what we were able to create here. So, was it worth it? How did we place in the contest? The quest category this time around had a ton of really good entries, so I wasn't really expecting to get first or anything, but I was hoping for top 3, and I knew we could at least get top 5. So the contest results come out, and we didn't even get top 5. Like, the minimum thing I expected. We didn't even get top 5. We did get top 10, which sounds nice until you remember that top 10 is literally just based on engagement and not quality at all. So all you have to do to get top 10 is have a decent room and promote it well. I put everything I had into this room, and we didn't even get top 5, and I was so sad. This is traumatic right here. We got nothing. Nothing. It's taking me back. I don't mean to be rude to any of the quest rooms that did get top 5, but looking at some of them, we definitely did deserve top 5, and I will stand by that opinion until I die. And when we asked for feedback from the judges on why we didn't get top 5, it was just the stupidest reasons ever, guys. I don't want to go into it too much, but it was just absurd. The actual moral of the story here is don't do contests. Worst decision of my life. The next room I worked on was BumperBuggies, which due to a Rec Room bug, I actually can't join without crashing right now, so for the A roll, we're gonna have to settle with Rec Rally instead. BumperBuggies is basically extreme bumper cars. There's custom bumping physics so that when you hit other cars based on your speed, you get bumped back. There's boosts placed around the platform, and as time goes on, the platform becomes smaller and smaller, and the goal is to be the last one alive. Players who are dead or joined mid-match can pick up these snipers along the side of spawn and try and shoot at the drivers. And if they get hit, they get flung really far, and we thought this was a really fun idea for players who are dead to kind of stay in the game instead of just needing to wait for the next round. We made this game because around this time, Ink Overflow wanted to start making some smaller rooms so we could put stuff out faster, and Rec Rally had just come out, so we wanted to use the buggy somehow. I did about half of the circuits for this room, and if you've been there, you'll also know that my voice is the announcer voice in the room. It's really weird if I go in there to play it myself, because I'll see someone like snipe someone, and then suddenly I'll hear my own voice go, "Oh my gosh, what a shot!" I think this room's just the definition of simple but fun to come back to, and I'm pretty proud of it. My next room was GrappleHookParkour, which, again, the title of these rooms are pretty self-explanatory for what the room is. Similar to BumperBuggies, a new thing had just come out, this time being the trigger handle, and we wanted to make a small room to do something cool with it. So we decided to make grapple hooks, and then the idea for this room is that there's this sort of Mario 64 non-linearity with all of these star bits strewn around the map, and it's just sort of up to you to go out and explore and have fun using the grapple hooks to try and get all the star bits you can. This main area you'll see behind me has a ton of blocks and stuff to swing off of, so it's pretty easy to navigate around, but near the edges of the map, there's some star bits with more linear challenges to get to them that are made to be more difficult. There's also a sort of leaderboard speedrun thing built in where you can press a button that lets you speedrun 5, 10, or all of the star bits at once, and then you just gotta collect that amount of star bits as fast as you can in whatever way you want to try and get to the top of the leaderboard with your time. I think I did pretty much all of the circuits in this room except for the actual grapple hook physics, so that would be all the speedrun stuff and the star bit collection. Honestly, this room is one of my favorites that I've worked on. It's just so much fun to come in here and swing around on random things with the grapple hook and pick up random star bits. It's also just super accessible to everybody. If I had to pick one room from this video for you to check out, I would probably pick this one. I haven't really been mentioning visits for these rooms, but I'm glad that this one ended up being pretty popular. Next room I worked on was SanctumOfSolitude, and this one's gonna be real quick. This was a submission for the Stranded contest in the art category, and as you might be able to guess, being an art room, it has basically no circuits. So I did very minimal circuits work in this room just to get some things working. The actual work and time I put into it was not very much. The idea of the room is that you just kind of start in this little fishing village, and then you go on this boat ride, and then you get hit by a boulder, and then, oh my gosh, you end up at this crazy temple and find crazy things. It's actually a really beautiful art room, so shout outs to all the actual builders who were on this team. It ended up getting second in the category, which honestly kind of left me feeling like I just used these other people to get top 3 because they're the ones who actually did most of the work. But you know, I guess I'll take it. Next up is TTT Shipyard. In case you don't know what TTT is, it's kind of like Among Us, where there's traitors and innocent people, and the traitors have to kill all the innocent people to win, and the innocent people have to kill all the traitors to win. There was a really popular TTT room in Rec Room a while back called like TTT City or something, and I just kind of wanted to make my own take on the game mode with some fancy new circuits to spruce it up. So one day I just kind of started making some circuits for it as an experiment, and then eventually Tonic made a map for it, and we ended up releasing it as an actual room. The main benefits that this TTT room has that other TTT rooms don't have is that roles now float above players' heads so everyone can see who the detective is, and traitors also have their role floating above their head, but only other traitors can see it. The detective has a special railgun. When players die, their bodies are left there, and they can be searched to find out who it was, and there's a bunch of fun consumables to mess around with too. This is one of the first projects I made in a while where I did 100% of the circuits, and I actually got to publish it under my own name instead of just being co-owner, and I'm pretty proud of the room. I think it's still one of the only TTT rooms where there's like a dead body searching system. The room does get a bit chaotic once you start going over like 10 players, but I think it's still pretty fun. Okay, we're almost there, I swear. This is SierraQuey, which is the room that I showed at the beginning. Ooh, we're coming full circle. This was a submission for the folklore contest, and it was in the hangout category. And I mean, I don't think I even gotta say anything. This room is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite looking rooms in the entire game. And not only is there this beautiful outside area, but there's an entire inside subroom too. That's like super cozy. It's super cute. This room is awesome. So while I didn't do any of the art for this room, I did do all of the circuits, and there's quite a few fun little activities around you can do, so I'll show you. First up is the gnome hunt. Around both of the subrooms, you'll find a total of 15 gnomes, and you can click on them to collect them. This is just kind of a fun little thing to encourage people to explore the entire room, and once you find all 15 gnomes, there's a little secret for you that opens up in this cave, but I won't spoil it. Next up is rock skipping. It works exactly as you'd expect. If you throw it and it hits the flat side with a lot of speed, then it'll go further and you'll get more bounces. But the thing that makes rock skipping really addicting is that there's a scoring system. It multiplies the amount of skips that you did by the distance that you threw it, and then that's your total score. And so, of course, there's also a leaderboard for these scores. Who would have thought that rock skipping can be competitive? With the whole competitive and scoring aspect, along with it just being fun to do semi-accurate rock skipping in Rec Room, this is one of my favorite things in this room. Next up is these kites that you can grab and pull around. Again, I think this is a pretty original idea. I haven't seen kites done like this in other rooms. You can't do too much with them, but they're pretty cute and it's fun to just pull them around. Next up on the inside is a folklore-themed Pictionary game. I basically recreated the 3D charades box where you can pull out a card and it gives you a theme and you got 60 seconds to draw it. It's basically just 3D charades except with 2D art. So with my fun little activities and all of our artists' absolutely breathtaking buildings, I don't think it's too much of a surprise that we got first place in the hangout category. Definitely check this room out if you just want to go somewhere to chill with your friends. And finally, the latest room that I've created as of the time of this video is HexaRunner. I started making this room with Ink Overflow on my New Year's Eve 24-hour live stream, but originally it was actually a pretty different idea. The original idea was that these hexagons were going to be much larger and there was going to be giant crushers that came down and killed people from above, and then when you die, you'd be able to control the crushers to try and get the people left alive, and the last one standing would win. We did end up eventually finishing this idea, but it turns out that the game wasn't really super fun because needing to look up constantly to find out if you were about to die wasn't really great, and also when people died, they didn't really properly understand how to control the crushers, and we couldn't really think of a better way to do that, so we just sort of shelved it for a while. But the room had a ton of good art in it, so we kind of wanted to repurpose it into something else eventually. And then about a month or two ago, we had the idea to repurpose it into a sort of clone of Minecraft TNT Run or the Fall Guys Hexagon game, where the idea is that there's these multiple layers of hexagons that you step on to break, and you want to try not to fall and be the last one standing. So I scrapped all of the circuits and redid them all from scratch, and here we are with HexaRunner released not that long ago. This room is really simple. You pretty much just run around the entire time, and once you die, you can use snipers to hit players that are still alive, kind of like in BumperBuggies. But still, I'll be the first to admit this isn't really my greatest work. It's fun for the first few rounds, but coming back to it again and again is something that isn't great after a while. Still, if you like Fall Guys Hexagon or Minecraft TNT Run, you want to play it in VR, this is your room. Maybe in like 3 years, I'll be making another video where I talk about all the stories of the rooms that I've made since right now. But for now, that's pretty much all of the rooms that I've had a somewhat significant role in creating across my entire Rec Room building career. If you want to watch a video where I get scammed by a room in Rec Room with Slat, then click here, but otherwise, thanks for watching.